areas of management of auditors' judgments, and it doesn't need to be entirely conclusive. If also when management plans may not be feasible, that would lead you to the path of a material uncertainty. Similarly, we have modified the third bullet when management has neither the intent nor ability to carry out specific courses of actions. We've changed that to management may not have the intent or ability to carry out specific courses of actions. And in line with CUSP, we've also removed the or, not least because we've inserted the for example at the beginning.
Did everyone get that?
In respect of the adequacy of disclosures, we've made the same change that you see at the bottom of this screen that I talked to you about in the context of the subtitle above 32. So then we go to A75.
Everyone okay with these so far?
Perfect, thank you. In 75, we got questions about what this was be referring to and whether there was whether also was needed there in the construct. So we've tidied up the language a little bit such that we now have a sentence that reads, additional disclosures may be necessary, for example, when no disclosures are explicitly required by the applicable financial reporting framework regarding these circumstances. Then we go to
okay, let's just make sure that everyone okay? Okay.
Thank you, Tom. A78. Appropriately so, we got a comment that our reference to international financial reporting standards was not the correct terminology. So we've changed that to IFRS accounting standards. And given that IFRS accounting standards is a defined term in our glossary, this is the appropriate nomenclature to use here. So that's been tidied up here. And that's it.
Okay, everyone got those. So the next question is, does anyone have any questions or comments on any other matters?
Can we just go back? I think it was A32. I missed it. I'm really sorry.
Josephine, did you mean A35?
Yeah, that's why I missed it. Thank you. A35. Thank you. Thanks, Ada.
We've put it on. Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
You're fine with that?
Thank you, yeah.
Okay. So any other comments or questions on the draft? Okay, so what I propose is before we go to any vote, I turn to Philippe of any final considerations to the PIOB perspectives before we vote.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I have no specific comment on that and on the result now. And I think the document is aligned with previous comments of the PIOB, and it's okay for us. Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready to begin the voting procedures, both on the proposed ISA 570 revised as presented and amended in this last session? And I assume this also will include conforming and consequential amendments as well as presented and posted. Are we okay with that? We know what we're voting on? Okay, before we turn to voting, I'm going to ask Ado as the task force chair to address relevant due process considerations from the task force perspective.
Thank you, Tom. The going concern task force due process considerations in coordination with the program and technical director have been included in section 4 of agenda item 2. This was posted on the IAASB's meetings webpage on November 18, 2024. With respect to significant matters identified by the going concern task force, it is the going concern task force view that the significant matters that the going concern task force has identified through its deliberations since it started working on developing ISA 540 revised 2024 have been reflected in the agenda materials presented to the IAASB at its meetings. In the going concern task force view, there are no significant matters discussed by the going concern task force in developing ISA 570 revised 2024 that have not been brought to the IAASB's attention. The task force does not believe that further consultation on the standard is warranted. For example, field testing of the proposals or holding a public forum or roundtable, given the input from stakeholders through the public consultation on ED 570. In addition, the project has benefited from targeted outreach activities with key stakeholders throughout the life cycle of its project, as reported in the agenda materials for IAASB meetings and as summarized in the paragraphs 47 to 49 of agenda item 2. Tom?
Okay. Thank you, Ado. So the next thing we'll do is I'll turn to Willy to address his report on due process.
Thank you, Tom. And for that, we separately posted agenda item 11.1. So agenda item 11.1 sets out as stated in its objective the status of due process followed in relation to this project under the headings that address background and due process up to the date of the December 2024 IAASB meeting. I advise that due process has been followed effectively and with proper regard for the public interest in relation to the development of ISA 570 revised to 2024 up to as well as during the December 2024 IAASB meeting. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much. Okay. Does anyone here have any objection to voting on 570 revised 2024 and conforming and consequential amendments? Okay, so I'm going to turn to the vote. I'll ask anyone who'd like to dissent to the approval of the standard to raise their hand. No hands have been raised. Anyone wish to abstain? Okay, so I could guess what the outcome of this was going to be. Could I ask for the votes in support? Let the record show 18 hands in support. Well, I'm going to turn it over. Congratulations, by the way. And we'll have a little bit more congratulations in a moment. To turn to Ado to address your view on re-exposure.
Thank you, Tom. In respect of re-exposure, I would refer to section 4 of agenda item 2, which presents the task force analysis of whether ISA 570 revised 2024 needs to be re-exposed. Agenda item 2E provides a comparison between the introduction objectives, definition and requirements in ED 570 and proposed ISA 570 revised 2024, and which also summarizes in the table in paragraph 52 of agenda item 2 with the further changes that were discussed during this meeting just now. And And in the task force view, there is no need to re-expose the standard. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Edo. Just a reminder, we've talked about re-exposure a few times this week, but when voting on re-exposure, it requires an affirmative vote of 12 members to vote to re-expose. So I'm now asking anyone, are they in favor of re-exposure here? No one is raising their hand, so there is no need to re-expose. I should guess for the record, I should get the dissent to re-expose, or who does not believe that we need to re-expose. Show of hands. 18 for that. Okay. So I'm going to turn to Billy to reconfirm, I should say, the effective date.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. And this is just to reconfirm the discussion that we had earlier in the week, that the board was in agreement that this standard will be effective for audits of financial statements for periods beginning on or after December 15, 2026.
So acknowledged, and I think we've discussed this enough, so I don't see any objection to that. So, Edo has a rule that we shouldn't have to congratulate everyone at every moment of the project. But this one rule I have is that certainly you congratulate everyone when they've completed a project so successfully. So first of all, thank you, Edo, for your leadership of this project. I want to thank the task force members, Sue, Kai Morton, Greg, and Wendy, the staff involved, Kalina and Natalie. Also, lots of previous task force members, Josephine, who at one point was the chair of the task force, and Isabel, and Renee. Thank you, Renee. And the former staff involved, and there was a number of staff members involved with Bev, Sally Ann, Ida, Isabel, Brett, and Angela. So I'm really proud of this standard. I think this shows this board's willingness to push the boundaries in the name of the public interest. I think the task force has really done a really good job at executing this and also listening to a wide range of stakeholder views who are included in the process, including investors. And we've done some innovative things to get investor input throughout this process too, from the very beginning in the information gathering through to the end. And I think you should be really proud of yourselves. So thank you. Edo, any final comments on this?
Yes, thank you, Tom. Yeah, you stole a little bit my thunder, but that's fine. Because I'm proud of the standard as well. Proud of the task force, the previous and everybody involved in the project, but so the task force members, staff, but also the board, in approving this standard. Well, we did set out with some fairly ambitious objectives that were going to move the needle, and that was important for me. We needed to move the needle. For some stakeholders, certain elements are a little bit more difficult to swallow. For example, the 12 months period that we've introduced. But I think also our due care throughout, and the analysis of the comment letters and the weighing of the public interest has driven us to where we landed today. And I think we've got a good balance there. We have moved the needle in this respect, and I'm very pleased sitting here with an approved standard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Edo. Before we close this session, I just, Philippe, any final observation you want to make as we close out going concern?
Thank you, Tom. No, I was pleased to listen to the conclusion of Edo because, as he said, it's the PIOB view that, the comments and all that concerns the remarks relating to public interest sensitivity were taken into consideration in the project for your moving the needle. Thank you very much for that, and I think it meets great objectives in terms of public interest in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, our work isn't quite done on the standard. Vili, could you give us an update on the next steps to publishing the standard?
Certainly. So the first thing that will happen is the staff team will just clean up the final amendments that we did today. And so by early next week, the approved text will be posted on our website, on our meetings webpage, as we normally do. We will then go into the process of preparing the due process documentation. So the board just keep an eye out. We will see at some point we'll send around the basis for conclusions for you for fatal flaw review. And then we will submit that whole package to the PIOB for their certification during their April meeting, which I think is around April 8 or 9. And then upon receiving the certification, we can then formally publish the standard.
Okay, great job. Ongoing concern. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to turn to listed entity and PI track 2. Just as an introduction, I thought maybe the best thing is to remind people what we agreed from a process standpoint yesterday. So what we agreed yesterday would be based upon the view of this board, we would develop and release a post-exposure consultation that would include an invitation to comment. This will be likely released in early February. We'd probably target the first week of February. 45-day comment period. The board will have the opportunity to see and comment on the invitation comment in sort of a negative clearance fashion, as we do with explanatory memorandum and basis for conclusions. The consultation invitation to comment would include a full explanation of our conclusions, how those are consistent with the project objectives, and will include the standard as agreed at this meeting. Stakeholders will be invited to share observations that they believe relevant before our finalization, and there'll be specific questions on the path forward in terms of effective date, board's intention to progress alignment with IAASB and our proposed timeline for revisiting the adoption of the definition of PI. At the June meeting, the board will review the feedback and, as appropriate, be asked to conclude the project. They had formally approved the standards and other voted formalities, so we could send this to certification. One thing that we want to just highlight, the consultation we're talking about will not address the agreed amendments to ISRA 2400 revised, and the amendments were replaced in the term listed entity with PTE and the going concern and fraud standards, because we've made those based on feedback on those EDs, and as a consequence, we'll be finalizing those narrow scope amendments. So I hope that is clear. That's an articulation of what we discussed yesterday in public session. So if that's clear, what we want to do is approve with this process in mind, the standard. So we should treat this next session just like we treated the going concern discussion in terms of getting the draft language right, because if we hear no comments, we plan that of substantive nature that causes change in the standard, we're going to approve the standard in June in the language that we have in front of you today. Okay? Does that make sense? Sue, our fearless leader on this topic.
A fearless leader, but she needs some assistance. I'm kind of wondering where the rest of the team are. Maybe they've run away, because we've got some slides to just pop up. We do have it's basically one small amendment to just share with you, but it's the same thing that replicates into a few places. So we've got that on some slides so that you can see that. Good. I'm feeling less lonely now the team has arrived. It's been a lonely project anyway. Right. Okay. So you will recall in our previous discussion that I think it was Greg raised the point in the context of 701 that we had kind of inadvertently narrowed the intent in that we weren't necessarily just talking about things that were other than PTE. So we proposed some wording there, and we talked about it whatever day it was, Tuesday afternoon, was it? Yeah. And we did say at the time that we didn't feel we necessarily needed to flow that through into other standards. Our eagle-eyed board members have sort of come back with comments in relation to one or two places where the language we have used does have the same effect in perhaps inadvertently narrowing down. So what we've done this morning is gone back line by line through each of these places where the same sort of construct of words has done, and we have a few where we think it would make sense to align. So that's just what I want to highlight to you. So if we just run through the slides, yeah. Can we take the next slide, please? Okay. Do you want it? Yeah, go on.
Okay, so the first one is in ISQM 1. So you'll see it's very similar wording that we use in CAM. So we're just including it in that differential requirements for that one is the firm communication, firms quality. I can't speak. The firm system quality management communication. Sorry. So really to avoid narrowing it to only when there's a significant public interest in the other entities. So
I just want to make sure, since we have two people on remote, that you were able to see it. You're good with this? Okay.
okay, the next one is with EQR. This one actually we haven't made any changes, although the construct that we use here is very similar. And the reason why is because it's in the list of example of when you can apply EQR, perform EQR on other entities. So we didn't feel like that was narrowing it for this particular one because it's just a list of examples. So we thought it was still appropriate to keep it there. So there's no change on that particular one. And that paragraph is A134. Sorry, I missed that, but. Okay. So next one. That's 260, so communication of with those charged with governance. Again, the same construct. We just added that, including those where the auditor determines to make sure that it's not narrowing down. Next one. That's CAM. So this one we haven't changed actually since what we presented to you on Wednesday. So no changes. And then the final one is with the going concern. This one is a little bit different, so I highlighted it because the sentence is a little bit different. So just so that it flows well, we added, for example, the auditor may decide to do so if the auditor determines that there is a significant public interest. So the construct will be a little bit different, but the intention is the same. It's just not to narrow it down in that particular instance.
Is everyone okay with that? Okay, nods.
That was it, Tom, in terms of any changes from previous. And I think, as you can see, as we work through these, it sort of shows that some of our standards are just constructed slightly differently. And so, but I just wanted to demonstrate we have done the full exercise and sort of taken that into account. Other than that, Tom, nothing else from us.
Okay. So thank you very much. I need to ask now, are board members ready to indicate whether they're happy? We'll do it by show of hands, that with the content of the narrow scope amendments in front of them, subject to the final consultation. You ready to take a vote? So is there anyone who objects to putting this out for this final consultation as described? Okay. By show of hands, could we see who's happy to put this out on the basis described at the outset of this session? Okay. Note that you got 18 votes in favor of this. So I'll ask Billy right now. Well, the other thing is, obviously now at this point that we've effectively instructed the staff to proceed with the consultation process. Billy, could you give it some guidance on what actually is going to happen to get this out by early February?
Yes. Well, firstly, instruction accepted. So what we will do next is we will also, the final text that the board agreed to now, we will post that onto to the meeting webpage as well as pre-final. Normally, with going concern, we would say approved. This one will go up as pre-final. And then myself and Ida and Isabel, together with Sue, will work on the consultation document. Which basically I think will be, we will leverage our papers from our September and December meetings to put that together. And we will then work on that to try and get that out by February 4. So we've put February 4 in there as our target date to publish that. If we meet that date of February 4, 45 days, we'll meet, the consultation will close on March 21. March 21 is the last day of our March board meeting. And we will then go into the comment analysis to see what we've received. As I said originally, when we started with this whole process, this will be treated as normal comment letters. So they will be on public record. They will be posted on our website. And the idea will be then, in addition to getting this ready, because the board has said they do not expect significant new views or new information on this, we will also in the background continue working on getting the due process documentation ready, including the basis for conclusions. So at some point, we will send around the proposed post-exposure consultation document to the board for fatal flaw review before we put it out on February 4. And at some point, you will also receive the basis for conclusion so that we can try and keep that process going. So that if we do not hear new information or new views, we can then do the formal approval at the June meeting, but also then submit that package for the July 1 to 2 PIOB meeting. The importance of that is when the PIOB then approves the certifies the standard, we are then still more or less, barring 1 or 2 days, within an 18-month period of December 2026. And as our intention was all along, we can keep fraud, going concern, and PIE's effective dates aligned.
Okay. So, Philippe, before we close the session, and I want to say a few words about where we are here for the team, I want your perspective on behalf of the PIOB.
Thank you, Tom. It has been discussed before. Thank you for the result and the approach that is supported by the PIOB, and no additional comment to make at this stage.
Okay. I know we're not at the end of the road here, but we're pretty close to the end. And I think at this time, I want to, first of all, thank Sue for maybe the best word is maybe a thankless task for your flexibility and your perseverance. I think those, if I would think about the term, is like we joke about, you've managed to keep a stiff upper lip despite it all. So thank you for that. I also want to thank the task force members, Eric, Hernan, and Susan on the staff, Ida and Isabel, former staff involved, Kalina, Dan, and just the board in general for your flexibility here. This has definitely been a more complex road than we ever would have thought for a narrow scope project, which I understand now why people are nervous about narrow scope projects at this board. So any reflections before we close the session?
I'm not sure we've got time for the reflections, but I think I would add thanks. You know, the task force has worked really hard. At times, it has felt like, you know, some of the work on the content has been secondary to some of the other things, and it's easy to overlook the fact that the task force and the team and Isabel and Ida have worked really hard to get us to where we are. So I think, you know, appreciate that. And then also, you know, Tom, Billy, James, you've all done an awful lot of work in the background as well to help us work through some of these sort of process challenges that we've had to get to where we are. So I look forward to seeing this finally out of the door, hopefully in June, and I hope I'll be there to see it. So thanks for the support, everybody.
Okay, thank you very much. So next, I want to invite Jasper to the table. We're going to go through the audit evidence and risk response project proposal and hopefully get to approval. So we'll give a moment for that.
Okay, good morning all. Can we get the project proposal on the screen? So I'll just walk you through the changes that we've made since the version that we've posted, and this mainly relates to one paragraph, and that's the action that relates to the consequential amendment to ISA 200 that we discussed yesterday as part of the it came up during the fraud discussion, and then we further discussed that later as well after the fraud session. So we added this action, and we did make two changes to it to what we sent around yesterday. The first one is we take out the lead-in. We upon reflection, and we've heard from board members that came in. They thought it was clunky, and it's not really necessary. So we took that out. And then the other thing we changed necessary for appropriate, because we thought it would also, based on a comment that we heard this morning, that it worked better with explore, because you explore whether something is appropriate to change, and we thought this was more eloquently worded. So I think those were the only changes that we made since the version that was posted yesterday.
Is there a footnote there that I see next to 200? So
Yeah.
Could you scroll down so we could see the footnote?
Yes. It's just a footnote explaining ISO 200. So if you scroll a little bit down on this page, then there's a little bit more you see on the bottom of this page. It's just a reference to ISO 200. This is now the first time where we refer to ISO 200. Can we go a bit more further down? Yeah, here we go.
So the one thing I think people may ask on this is, and it may be fine as it is, but if we explore it, determine in the exploration that something should be done, but it's not a consequential amendment, in a footnote, should we suggest that what happens, or it would, because that was what Billy was saying yesterday, right? It's like at that point it goes into the hopper of needed to be some form of other project, right?
Yeah, so I can confirm that that's indeed what will happen. However, we thought this was fine because we haven't reached that conclusion yet. So allow us to explore that, but you're quite right. There's only one of two outcomes here. The one outcome is we explore it and we think, well, it could be a consequential amendment and we do it, or we explore it and we decide, well, the change may be needed, but it is more than a consequential amendment. And as you say, then it goes into the hopper.
Actually, there's three outcomes. You could explore it and determine that the language is fine.
Fine, yeah, sorry, that's the third outcome.
Today. I just wanted on public record that we know that those are in the explorations, the path that we would choose. It's like either you don't need to do something, you do need to do something and it could be done through a consequential, or you need to do something and it triggers some other action. Are we all clear on that? But are fine with the language as proposed? Okay.
No, that's all.
Thank you, team, on that one. So I want to ask the board if anyone has any objections to voting on the project proposal for the audit evidence and risk response project. And if anyone's unclear on what we're approving, which is this document so amended. Okay, by show of hands, could I get a vote on whether you approve the project proposal as presented? Okay, I think that's all 18 board members, so congratulations. So really congratulations to Jasper, Hankin, Anna, and our focus group members, Julie, Vishal, Sachiko, Ado, and Warren, and just the board in general. This is a big project, an important one. We're trying some new things on this as well. I think this project is responsive to the public interest to deal with both substantive matters in these areas in an integrated fashion, but also our ability to start leaning into our technology statement too. So thank you to everyone and to the team for working so hard to get us here. I had to say the hard work really is about to start. So a lot to do more. Philippe, I want to see if you have any observations on the project proposal or any advice for us moving forward.
No, thank you, Tom. As you say, we have exposed some public interest issues formally in a document concerning this topic. And it seems to us that, these remarks have been really included and considered in the project at this stage. So we are satisfied by the contents of the project.
And Billy, any administrative matters about getting this project proposal up and on our website?
Yeah, that's basically what will happen is we will update the project page and we will post the project proposal on the project page. And then the work starts.
It started already. It will accelerate though. So, okay. I think that's the last of the formal business of this meeting of this week. We've accomplished a lot. The draft minutes, which I know everyone is dying for, be first, will be distributed to the board in due course. We'll post them for approval at our March 2025 meeting. Just so you note, we are not using our February 5th call that's been in your calendar. So the next quarterly meeting will be held March 18th to 21. Note those dates because they're not Monday to Friday. We are not meeting on the Monday because we want to let you enjoy the parade that's outside this office. Joking there. Not that you wanted to enjoy it. The details for that meeting were not finalized yet, but we'll post the agenda in due course. Posting will begin on February 24th, and all materials for discussion should be up by the 28th of February. Now, before we close this meeting out, I want to do some just public acknowledgements of our departing board members. We'll have some moment in executive to present them with items too, but I just wanted to first acknowledge Warren, who's been a board member for a term, but an eventful term. as you said, you're you're finishing it as you started by video. So we've missed seeing you in person, but you've certainly been a big presence. And really, we've been so lucky to have Warren in his expertise for the Sustainability Assurance Task Force. You've also been a member of our Technology Consultation Group and our Audit Evidence and Risk Response Focus Group. You've been our key liaison to the academic community, so hugely appreciative for your outsized impact for one term. You jumped in right away, and we'll miss you. Eric Turner, who's completing a decade of service to this board, first as a TA for Ron Solol, and then as two-term member. You've been a chair in many capacities, the Agreed Upon Procedure Task Force, the IAASB Liaison Working Group, the Professional Skepticism Consultation Group. You've also been involved with Key Task Force, Audit Evidence, Group Audits, Listed Entity of PI. You've carried the Isabel's torch with CUSP Working Group and served as a liaison with IAASB. Hugely appreciative of your contributions, Eric. Kai Mortenhagen has been a two-term member as well. You will always be known best as the fearless Viking leader of the ISA for LCE task force, but you've also been a member of some other important projects too, task forces, ISA 315 and Going Concern. You have been a liaison with IAASB and the SMPAG and a member of the planning committee. So thank you, Kai, for your contributions. So you extend over a decade of service to this board, and served 2 terms. We've been, most importantly, you've served, as we know, listed entity of PI and audit evidence. But I think when you think about Sue is, first of all, her pragmatic input on so many topics, but also we teased a little bit previously, her ability to take on thankless tasks maybe, but persevere with great attitude, because some of this has not been easy. Like some projects seem to go smoothly and you get adulation for it, but in my mind, you deserve a lot of praise for your work, both in chairing, both listed entity and PI and audit evidence. And for that, I'll forever be grateful. You've also been a member of the ISQM1 and Going Concern Task Force, member of our Technology Consultation Group, and our IAASB and IAASB Liaison Working Group. So huge thanks to you, Sue. Julie, speaking of a person always willing to take on challenging tasks, we threw you in the deep end on ISQM1. You did an incredible job chairing that task force and bringing what I think is a landmark standard to completion. As I said, you've been a board member for 2 terms. You also chaired the fraud task force, and this won't be a goodbye because we'll see you when we approve this at the next board meeting. You were also a member of the ISA for LCE task force and a member of the planning committee and audit evidence and risk response focus group. So thank you, Julie. And Sachika, it's sort of weird to thank you for your service because you're not done with this board, at least in the near term. But you've been a TA with 3 members and maybe a 4th going forward. You've been a 2-term board member. You're a member of the EER, ISQM1, Audit Evidence, ISA for LCE, and Fraud Task Forces. You've also been a member of our Audit Evidence and Risk Response Focus Group, Auditor Reporting Consultation Group, 540 Implementation Working Group, and our Planning Committee. Geez, we got a lot out of you. Good thing the pay is so good. But thank you, Sachiko. And thank you for willing to continue to serve in some capacity for this board. So I really think this is a moment in the public session for us to applaud their accomplishments. So. Okay. I just want to thank everyone for having such a great meeting. Huge thanks to the staff, everyone involved in making this meeting go so successfully, whether it was in preparing the meetings materials or in the arrangements for this meeting. I want to thank Philippe for the constructive matter and the partnership with the PIOB that we have. And wanted to know if you wanted to offer any final reflections before we close the public session.
Thank you, Tom. I'm sharing a personal, feeling and emotion with you. I was present in New York for the same meeting 1 year ago, exactly at the same week, And 1 year after, I must say that I'm really impressed by what you have delivered during this year, really. I think that there was a self-satisfaction that I noticed yesterday about 5%, and the show you are going to organize, I'm sure that you will be very good at that, no doubt. And it starts being recognized internationally, the interest and the quality of this standard. But all the other stuff, that have considered this week, the different projects in course, what has been approved this morning. I congratulate you for that, for this commitment, for the quality of the work, and the collaboration. As Tom said, I think the transparency of the communication and the opportunity, the quality between PIOB and IAASB is improving. And thank you very much, Tom, for that. And I will conclude saying that, in addition to the compliments to the team and to the different musicians, I would say, of the band, I have a high praise for the virtuosity of the conductor, if I may, Tom, who knows very well his musicians and his score inside out. So thank you very much for that. And I think that we will have great time in collaborating between the PIOB and IAASB.
Thank you for those remarks, Philippe, and thank you for recognizing the team's progress and accomplishments, which, as you said, we're really proud of right now. Okay, I don't think I could top that, and so I think at that moment, I think we should close the public session. Thank you to all of our observers for following us. Obviously, this will all be posted online, so you can watch our YouTube videos